What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Racing and Ferrari. Willi Koenig was born just before the outbreak of World War II, in 1938. While still quite young, he succeeded in the publishing business and became wealthy enough to allow himself to take part in car racing as a hobby, and he soon took it up professionally, having bought a Formula Junior Cooper in 1961 from Formula One driver Wolfgang von Trips. The following year, driving a Ferrari 250 GT SWB Berlinetta, he won the German Hill Climb Championship under the pseudonym Robert Frank. The young driver was even spotted by Enzo Ferrari himself, who invited him to an event in Maranello. Until the end of the 60s, Koenig participated in various competitions in such cars as Lola T70, Fiat Abarth, Borgward Isabella TS and Ford GT40. However, in 1969 he decided to end his professional racing career in order to concentrate on his own business, taking part in amateur racing from time to time. But suddenly in 1974 Willi the racer beats Willi the businessman. He sells the print shop, buys a Ferrari 365 GT4 BB and returns to the track. However, the sports car with a big name somewhat disappointed the German, as it behaved differently from the purebred racing cars he had previously dealt with. As a result, he comes to make Ferrari real sports cars again, and not in the form of tuning his own car in a single instance, but as a business. From the very beginning, Koenig goes the simple and tried-and-true route, widening the track with wider wheels, fitting a developed spoiler, reinforced grip and a new exhaust. This did not go unnoticed by Ferrari owners, and they asked Willi to work on their cars as well. In 1977 Koenig opened Koenig Specials GmbH in Munich, and he did it very timely, if we remember that just at that time Hans Werner Albrecht and Erhard Melcher were actively developing their company in a Falterbach AMG, and Bodo Buschmann was working with Klaus Brackmann in Bortrop Brabus. Owen Lawrence's son has launched a division Sport Service Lawrencer, and the Hartke brothers have prepared for the Rally BMW for the 3rd Series BMW Rally. In a word, Willi was in the trend, engaged in refining the exterior and interior of not cheap cars. However, in his case they were not banal German sedans, but hot Apennine stallions. Thanks to the original exhaust from Koenig Specials, the power of V-shaped 12-cylinder engine model 365 512 BV with a volume of almost 5 liters increased from 335 to 350 horses. Modification of the timing mechanism raised this figure to 400 horsepower, while the installation of a new piston added to the herd another 50 horses. The owner of Ferrari could choose the depth of intervention in the sports car to his taste, and in the most charged version the car accelerated to 100 km per hour in only 4 seconds against 6.5c in the stock. If this was not enough for the owner, Koenig offered a twin-turbocharged version, which consisted of a pair of Raggi superchargers and intermediate air coolers, which provided 620 horsepower. Well, to accelerate to an impressive 332 km per hour instead of the standard 280, Koenig redesigned almost every body panel, not counting the hood and roof. The fiberglass Dodges not only improved aerodynamics, but also gave the car a 100% recognizable look, quickly becoming a trademark of Koenig Specials. Take a Ferrari and do what no one else has dared to do. This is roughly how one can describe the recipe for aesthetic madness and technical genius from Willi Koenig. In 1984, a new era began for Ferrari, as the company introduced the Testarossa. A year later in Frankfurt, Koenig demonstrates his vision of this car, raising the engine power by 320 horsepower to a mind-boggling 710 horsepower. Thanks to this, Koenig version accelerated to 100 km per hour in 3.8s, and acceleration stopped at 340 km per hour, standard figures, 5. 4s and 290 km per hour respectively. However, the Testarossa was so much liked by Koenig that in 1988 he released an 800 horsepower version of the competition, and a year later, an open version of the competition Cabrio, which was not as fast as the closed one with its 349 km per hour, but still could accelerate only to 319 km per hour. It should be noted that Ferrari itself never planned to produce Testarossa with a convertible top, as it required significant body modifications. Demolition of the roof cost the owner of the car in $55,600, which is equivalent to modern $120,000. And that's not all. At the top of the lineup of Koenig Specials was the competition Evolution version with 1,000 horsepower DIN with a claimed top speed of 230 miles per hour, 370 kilometers per hour, and an estimated acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.5 seconds. To achieve such performance, Koenig used the most expensive and advanced technologies of those years. Thus, the turbines were taken from cars for the American Racing Series IMSA, and for injection and ignition was responsible for the Metronic system, finalized by Joseph Lenz. The turbines could boost up to 1.4 bar, and Lenz's system was called Turbotronic. With detonation sensors, Turbotronic quickly changed ignition angles and boost pressure to avoid overboost and detonation, and the parameters could be monitored directly in the cabin on the LCD screen. At the same time, the driver could turn a switch located between the seats to change the maximum power from 600 to 1000 horsepower. Having completely restitched the interior with leather and installed a 1000-watt Kenwood audio system, Koenig brought the cost of the car to an incredible mark of $595,900 US, which today is equivalent to the sum of $1.2 million. In general, colleagues in the shop, i.e. West German tuners of Mercedes and BMW on the background of works and scope of Koenig looked like teenagers. However, some automobile editions of those years ambiguously spoke about the appearance of modified Ferrari cars, even considering them ugly. For example, Auto Bild magazine called Koenig and his team the wildest tuners in Germany, and car editor Chris Chilton included 2 Koenig cars in the top 10 list of crimes of German mods of the 80s, but noted that competition Evolution along with Rough Yellowbird were probably the most famous modified supercars. Koenig has also modified cars owned by celebrities. His clients include actor Sylvester Stallone, who owned a silver Mercedes-Benz 560 SEC, and Formula One driver Gerhard Berger, who owned a 650 horsepower Testarossa biturbo. It can be unequivocally stated that the changes of Koenig Specials left almost no one indifferent, from ordinary mortals to world stars, and the Italian sports cars became even more formidable and brutal than in the original. It is interesting that the army of haters included Enzo Ferrari himself, who quickly and categorically forbade the placement of garseted stallions, i.e. the emblems of the brand on Willys creations. Moreover, if any representative of the media risked to show on their pages or TV footage photo of such a car with Ferrari emblems, he would immediately receive a lawsuit from the Italians. Despite this, later Koenig finalized and many other models of the Italian brand, 308, F40, F50, F348, and depending on the number of turbines, the power ranged from 400 to 800 horses, which was the standard range for the products of the German studio. Among the permanent employees of the atelier were widely known in narrow circles specialists, in particular, engine tuner Franz Albert and Vittorio Strosek, who also owned his own atelier Strosek Design. Willy Koenig's racing career was over by this time, and he was succeeded by his son Walter. Continued Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, Lamborghini, Jaguar and others. Ferrari was not alone. In the 80s, the company was doing not just well, but very well. Well, the restless Koenig turned his eyes to other sports cars. Over time, a lot of exotic cars settled in the backyard of Koenig Specials. The recipe was unchanged: spectacular exterior with developed wide-body Dodges, massive spoilers and bumpers, wide wheels, luxurious interior decoration, and powerful audio system. At the same time, versions from Koenig Specials were not considered kitsch and had their own target audience and enough wealthy, so that the market reacted to such an unusual offer with appropriate solvent demand. However, Willy Koenig remained in his repertoire and could add a rather crude furniture Dodger to the exquisite Jaguar XJR Coupe, or install on the Porsche 911 not only a huge ducktail, but also four-eyed front optics under a common glass, so that the German sports car completely lost face, turning either into a knockoff of the British TVR or a parody of the Japanese coupe. The dubious image was completed by the rear optics from Audi 200. If with Ferrari everything was on the verge, then with Jaguar already beyond. However, everyone can offend an artist, but not every artist is able to offend Porsche and then sell it for a lot of money. Another example of an unusual approach is the open version of Lamborghini Diablo. After Diablo Roadster prototype was presented in 1992, up to 1995 Koenig Specials was the only company that offered to remake the Yellow Devil into a Roadster or Targa. Of course, the specialists of the studio did not do without their long-standing specialty, the installation of twin turbocharging, which raised the power and torque up to 800 horsepower and 750 Newton-meters respectively. According to their recipe in Munich finalized in some BMW models, for example, Coupe 635 CSI and 850 respectively, although they were not negligent there and work on the Banal 7 in the E32 body, the model with a four-door wide-body received the designation Koenig KS7. In 1991, on the basis of Porsche 962, the specialists of the company created their first own car, which was able to drive on public roads besides Le Mans. Koenig C62 with a 3.3-liter biturbo engine with an output of 800 horsepower could accelerate up to 380 km per hour, gaining the first 100 in 3.3 seconds. Despite the fact that in the 90s Koenig Atelier was also noted for modifications of such legendary cars as Mercedes-Benz CLC 140 and Roadster R129, Ferrari F50 and Lamborghini Diablo VT, the demand for such apathetic and extravagant modifications of already difficult and not cheap cars was steadily decreasing. It can be said that everything began with the Italian stallion, and at the beginning of the new century it also ended with him. One of the last models of the company was Koenig KS360 biturbo based on Ferrari F360. However, no one is forgotten and nothing is forgotten. There are still many admirers of Willy Koenig's creativity in the world. For example, in Japan there are whole clubs of admirers and owners of Koenig Specials cars. In conclusion, the world of German supercar tuning, particularly through the lens of Koenig Specials, showcases an extraordinary blend of engineering excellence and artistic vision. Each project not only pushes the boundaries of performance but also redefines what we expect from high-end automobiles. From jaw-dropping speed to unparalleled customization, Koenig Specials has consistently delivered masterpieces that captivate enthusiasts and collectors alike. As we look to the future, it will be exciting to see how this atelier continues to innovate and inspire within the realm of supercar tuning. Thank you for joining us on this journey through some of their most outstanding projects.